Are there any general questions that you have for me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where can a parent find out more information about the inclusion schools? If a parent wants to know more about it, where can they find information?
I'll get you this before I leave tonight. There is a Boston Inclusive Schools Network website, and I'm terrible with website names, so I'll get the website name and make sure you have that.
We'll have them on our site as well. And if you want to know anything about the assignment process, we have the link on our site to go to as well. So
Super. Is the link to the inclusive website on your website?
not yet, it will be.
Okay,
Next year.
Other questions? Yes.
I have one, Carolyn. You said it's not been scheduled, so it will be scheduled?
Yeah,
Any idea?
With regard to the, I'm actually somebody that's on the external advisory committee. I was asked to be on that specifically, I hope, to sort of talk about the issues related to special education. So as part of my involvement in the external advisory committee, I sort of briefed the whole committee on the fact that children with special needs don't go through the regular assignment process, that by law and regulation we go through a placement process. And my concern was that the historical lottery process was not integrated with that placement process, so that if all the seats are given away during the lottery, there's no seats left for children with special needs. And since we want more inclusion, there needs to be a recognition of children with special needs and students requiring seats, in those programs. So after that briefing, what happened was they just rolled out the models to the external advisory committee on Monday. That was the first time that we saw them. John and I were specifically asked to go in and meet with them in our Sped Pack roles in advance of that, just so they could explain it to us. So there's different models there's 5 models that were proposed, but with regard to children with special needs and also for children who are English language learners. They're not part of that model in terms of their needs are being addressed through specific models that will be an overlay on any of the ultimate models that are chosen. So for children with special needs, we're being proposed to be broken up into clusters. And I actually haven't even had an opportunity to pose any questions myself about that process. So we're going to meet with them specifically to ask questions. If people have looked at the information and they have questions that they want to pass along to me, feel free to do so. But basically, as opposed to the zones that are in the regular assignment process, if you will, children with special needs are proposed to be broken up into clusters, which is geographically based, but would also enable, as John was saying, specific special education programs to exist within those clusters themselves. Obviously, high incidence there would be more of, and low incidence maybe more centers in terms of there wouldn't be one in each cluster. So we're really just at the beginning stages of all this because they just released the information to us. But since there's a specific overlay or basically a plan for children with special needs, we said, well, instead of asking our community to go to the regular meetings, we would like to have a special meeting for parents of children with special needs so that parents can pose their own questions directly to the internal BPS group who's actually creating all of these different models. But I do think that it's a major step forward and a big improvement that children with special needs as well as English language learners are being recognized as a specific population that goes through different processes for getting into their particular schools and into their particular programs, and that needs to be recognized in the overall assignment process. So I think it's, a big step forward for us in that we're looking to be integrated into the system as a whole so that we have equal access to seats as children who are non-disabled. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I have another question. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this yet. If you have a special needs child and your school is far away from your home, but you like that school, can they remain in that school, or will this new system force them to move closer?
I honestly don't know the answer to that yet. I would say that legally, with regard to placement, you have a right to keep your current placement, but if it's if the same services and programming is offered in a different location, then that might be an issue where there's some room for interpretation, I would say.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add one thing, and that is that there is active discussion going on right now about what what the technical group calls grandparenting. Some of us refer to it as grandfathering, but we're more equitable these days, so it's grandparenting. And there's no clear model yet for that, but there's a lot of discussion about what the terms of grandparenting would be.
Because the same questions are also being asked by parents of non-disabled students. If they like the program that their child is in their school, is the new assignment process going to require kids to change? And so that's something that's the subject of much discussion, but I don't think any final determination yet. I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to ask questions myself about what was proposed on Monday, and obviously I'll update people, you know, as I'm able to throughout this process.
My question is about transition services. What exactly do you do for that?
Transition services, when a child has a disability and they're 14 years or older, and actually during the year that they turn 14, that IEP period, there's a requirement to have a transition plan. And it's to address the student's needs based on who they are as an individual and how their disability impacts them. So some kids might need life skills, other students might need vocational training or sort of job mentoring, job coaching. It can be social skills, it can be sort of how to fill out a job application, how to take public transportation, how to go and do banking skills. It can be any or all of those depending on the individual child, but it is required by law to exist from the time that a student turns 14.
Other questions?
The piece, I guess, for special needs kids, we were saying that the only way to work out in a school on an IEP is through placement in an IEP, or when it actually goes in and says, this is where you're going to go, and this is the school you're at. Not so, and I guess that's the piece that I guess for a lot of us are concerning, is that we got our seats through the lottery and have an IEP in place, didn't get a placement until a couple days before school started. At that point, we already had our seat. We've had from just going through the regular lottery. So there's a gray zone, I guess, when we're looking at the new zones for a lot of us, is that it's not that we're in a sped seat right now or we're having those things. The question is that not everybody kind of qualifies for the undefined term of what special education looks like in these new plans that DPS is putting out. And what does that mean for a lot of us pathologists in gray zones where kids are on IEPs, getting specialized services, but got their seats through a lottery? And I guess that's the piece that not everybody gets their seat through a placement process in their IEP. I guess that's the perfect.
No, we are aware of that. It's children that get resource room services generally, although I'll let John speak to this, but the law itself does require that the team, the child's individualized education team that meets and develops their ed plan,
Right.
also makes a determination of placement, and that team includes the parents. So that's the type of, and the location. But if parents choose to participate in the regular lottery process and they get an assignment that they want, I mean, I guess that's an issue where the two systems have not recognized each other yet, and that's also something that we've brought to their
Well,
attention.
as a parent, I can say you have to play both sides of the coin. You would hope that your kid's going to get an IEP placement that you want, and if not, what do you do come September 10th, you know, for like a K2 placement? So you kind of do play both sides of the coin and say, let's take our chances of the lottery and hope that I get into one of my top 3 spots, because it's 80% right now. It's most of us that go through the lottery get our top 3 choices in a school that is close to us. But the hard part is, and I know that I can speak to a couple of us that have gone through this year, is that it's difficult. You feel like you're playing. The lottery itself is super stressful. The IEP process is super stressful. Personally, we closed out my IEP in June with no placement because they kept saying that they were going to wait to see how the school's filled. So there's a lot of pieces that we say and do work really well, but I've been at this now for 9.5 months and I'm still struggling. So it's really like, I think that the internal advisory or external advisory needs to hear some of that too, that it's not every kid that gets a seat through an IEP is going to be affected by this new rezoning. It's a lot of us that are kind of just trying to muddle through on a day-to-day basis for the kids.
Yeah, so when I talked about the fact that that's what the law requires, I did talk about the fact that that's not happening for all children with special needs as well.
I would say a good thing to do now is to make contact with one, if you have a young child, Cindy Nielsen and she has a staff in the elementary and early childhood area, and sometimes it helps to have a personal working relationship with a member of our supervisory staff. Not that we can fix everything, but we can sometimes solve problems.
Can I just make a suggestion? I don't know, but I'm thinking maybe, like you said, sometimes during the year, I'm running meetings, some kind of training on like the 504 versus the IEP. Because my son was on IEP and I tried to come on 504. Luckily, I knew the difference and I knew what the laws were, so that doesn't happen. But as this parent was talking about, then they got me to keep him on the IEP, but put him down to reduce into a resource fund. And I didn't know that meant he would lose the extended two-year program, he would lose the door-to-door transportation and everything else. And when I found out about it, luckily I didn't sign the IEP, so I used my favorite rights. But I think parents as a whole need to know the difference between a 504 and an IEP, and if your child is reduced to a resource, what that actually means. Because a lot of people are signing IEP and have no idea what they're signing. So I don't know if you do a training.
Yep.
Just to educate parents.
We can do a training definitely on that.